We live in a simulation, and life is basically a dream. If you pay attention to your daily life and to your dreams, if you can remember them, you'll notice that life has a dreamlike quality to it. Our dreams are a moment-by-moment projection of the mind. They come and go on the screen of the mind, just like people, places, and things come and go in our real life, but they're also just appearances on the screen of the mind. The laws of physics and the tightly woven web of cause and effect allow for an illusion of reality, and they're the foundation for the simulation. Even the Buddha once said, life is an illusion, a dream, a bubble, a shadow. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is worthy of anger or dispute. The idea that the world is a simulation, of course, isn't anything new. It can be found in ancient texts written thousands of years ago. For example, in 1945, Gnostic texts, which are said to have been written between the 2nd and 4th centuries AD, were discovered near the Upper Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi.
The Gnostics were not a race, even a people. They were a belief system. They were a perception system. And whenever they got into a place and started to communicate this perception, this knowledge, it's what gnosis means, knowledge, but a certain kind of knowledge, they were persecuted by the Roman Church, who sent the boys in. So it was the Gnostic perception system that was running the Great or Royal Library at Alexandria in Egypt. This fantastic depository of ancient knowledge and ancient historical awareness knowledge, which was destroyed in a sequence over a period by the Roman Church. And the most significant one, the most talked about one, happened around 400 AD, just after. And the Gnostics, when you see what they were saying, you can see why the Roman Church wanted to destroy them. Now, it seemed that what the Gnostics believed had been lost, the detail of it anyway. But then, in 1945, a sealed jar was found, an earthen jar, at a place called Nag Hammadi, about 70, 80 miles north of Luxor on the Nile in Egypt. And in that jar was found to be a pack of writings, codices, manuscripts that were put there by the Gnostics.
They were discovered on the flank of a cliff. There is a very large boulder that fell off at some time and broke when it impacted. And on the east side of that boulder is where the discoverer pointed out to me he was digging for fertilizer and lit upon the jar. He came and with his mattock broke the jar and got out the books and took them home 3 or 4 miles away.
Crispell discovered the penniless camel driver who found the Nag Hammadi codices and listened to his own story.
I was digging for sabach, for fertilizer, with my pickaxe and carrying it back to the fields on the camel. Then I came across this big earthenware pot, which was buried in the sand. I had a feeling that there might be something inside.
He's from the El Saman clan, which dominates many of the villages in that part. He is a peasant. He is illiterate. He is a Muslim, worked as a camel driver for a middle-class Copt, and in his generation that was typical. The Copts were the white collar and the Muslims were the physical laborers.
I came back later the same day, and I smashed the pot open. I broke it open exactly where I had found it. I thought there might be an evil spirit inside, a jinni. I had never seen anything like it before. I smashed the pot on my own, and inside I found these old books. Then I brought the others over to see. They said, "We don't want anything to do with these books. They belong to the Christians, the Copts." They said, "It's nothing to do with us."
The Nag Hammadi Library, super illegal Gnostic Gospels or not. The collection includes so-called Gnostic Gospels like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip, as well as obscure mystical texts.
So suddenly there were writings which described what the Gnostics believed in detail, and they had the great benefit of, because they were in an earthen jar all that time, they couldn't, like other religious writings, be played with and changed to fit the authority of the day. And in these Nag Hammadi writings, they describe something called the silence, the field of possibility and probability waiting to manifest, the silence. And the other thing about these ancient writings, and writings like them in religion and in ancient cultures, is they only had, as I said earlier, the symbols and analogies that fitted the society of the time. They didn't have computers. You know, they didn't have Wi-Fi fields. And so what we're looking at are descriptions using the symbols of the time. We can now update them. But what the Gnostics also called the silence was the father of all. They were trying to get across in a simple way the creator of all. Not a man with a beard on a throne, the creative force of all, the father of all. And this is from one of the Nag Hammadi texts, talking about this silence. "He is an incomprehensible one, but it is he who comprehends all, and nothing exists outside of him. But all exists within him, and he is boundary to them all, as he encloses them all, and they are all within him. There is no place outside of him," describing all that is, has been, and ever can be, the force that drives all things. But they said, and this is so the really massively relevant part to the world that we live in, they said that the silence was the creative force, but there was a fake God which had created this reality that they call the physical world. They said the physical world is a prison created by an evil fake God. Spirit, awareness, as I would call it, is entrapped in the body. Salvation, escape from this entrapment, comes from knowledge or gnosis of self and reality. And gnosis is knowledge, yes, but it's not knowledge, names, dates, places knowledge. It's knowledge of reality and how it works, that kind of knowledge. And they said the kingdom is invisible, which is true, because that which is beyond this reality is invisible to us. Everything else that exists. Now, this physical world prison that they describe in their language, I call the simulation. We update it into modern language.
We live in a vast universe on a small wet planet where billions of years ago, single-celled life forms evolved from the same elements as all non-living material around them, proliferating and radiating into an incredible array of complex life forms. All of this, living and inanimate, microscopic and cosmic, is governed by mathematical laws with apparently arbitrary constants. And this opens up a question. If the universe is completely governed by these laws, couldn't a powerful enough computer simulate it exactly? Could our reality actually be an incredibly detailed simulation set in place by a much more advanced civilization? This idea may sound like science fiction, but it has been the subject of serious inquiry. Philosopher Nick Bostrom advanced a compelling argument that we're likely living in a simulation, and some scientists also think it's a possibility. These scientists have started thinking about experimental tests to find out whether our universe is a simulation.
I've been saying since just after the turn of the millennium that our experienced reality is a form of simulation. In those days, I could only find one man who was saying publicly that we could live in a simulation. That was Nick Bostrom at Oxford University. But now many scientists around the world are convinced this is true. Bostrom's version of the simulation and my own were not the same, but at least we agreed that our apparently natural reality is not natural at all.
Reality is beyond anything we can even imagine. Even things that look solid are mostly just empty space. Everything comes out of nothingness, or rather, no-thingness, and it appears to be real, like a hologram, but it's all an illusion. Nothingness is no-thingness. Things disappear, they come and go, but nothingness remains. Forms disappear, which includes people, places, and things, but the formless remains because it's the ultimate reality. All things are just forms, dreams. They're part of the simulation. We are different only in form, and form is just an illusion. Behind all the forms is the one reality, which is awareness, which is no-thingness. And this awareness is beyond the simulation.